Good day, everyone. Live from Cloud City, Seattle. This Justin. I'm Justin, and this is the Microsoft Reactor show for what is of the moment. And we've got a really good discussion today in up-leveling your skills. I've invited two people that I really admire in terms of their career journeys and what they've done in their career as well. And we're going to have a little bit of a discussion. I'll call it maybe a fireside chat where we're going to talk about what it's like to have a CS degree, go to a coding bootcamp, or get some credentials like a certification, for example. And the point is there really is no right or wrong answer. All of these choices are an important journey for many learners en route to a career in technology. But we're going to talk about some of those different situations that one might think about when they are considering what they do next in their career. Just as a reminder, this Microsoft Reactor event does have a code of conduct. Obviously, please be nice. Please be respectful. That's an important part of our community. But most importantly, this is one where we would really, really like your questions. So log into your favorite chat platform, whether it be Learn TV or YouTube or Twitch or any of the other places that we are broadcasting, and ask your questions because we have Ornella and Gwyn joining us today. Hello, both of you.
Hey, Justin.
Hey, how's it going?
Excellent. Well, tell us a little bit more about your career journeys and why you're here. Why don't we go ahead and begin with Ornella, and then we'll go to Gwyn.
Wow, big question. Career journey. So I've been at Microsoft for almost 4 years. It was my first job out of college, and I'm a cloud advocate on the student advocacy team. So if you don't know what that means, it's kind of like a role that sits between engineering, content development, and maybe sales, but not really. Kind of hard to say. But I focus on making content for student audiences and connecting the student community, and then advocating on behalf of students to the product teams of the products that they work on. So it's kind of the mission of my job. And I'm sure we'll touch a little bit more on how I got here in future conversations.
Sounds good. How about you, Gwyn?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Gwyn, also a cloud advocate here at Microsoft since June of last year, so it's like 9 months now. I am on the regional cloud advocacy team, so pretty much very similar to what Ornella does, except the audience is a little different. And yeah, I guess I'm sort of like the self-taught certification side of this conversation, and yeah, we'll touch upon like how I got into this role and things like that. But that's me in a nutshell, really.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, I want to begin with a little bit of icebreaker questions for our learners to get to know you a little bit more. So what was the moment when you first realized software felt like magic? Something must have inspired you to pursue this career.
I mean, I think like the biggest thing that made me want to sort of like get into tech or like touch tech or become like a software dev was like Skype calls. 'Cause I have always sort of grown up with like not near one of my parents, either not near my mom, not near my dad, or not near both of them at a, like for years in life. And we've always used like Skype or FaceTime to like connect. And then I like watched this tutorial in like high school where it's like, sort of how to like create your own clone. It was like a front end kind of thing. And I was like, wait, I could like essentially like recreate this thing that I use almost every single day to like connect with like my loved ones. And then ever since then I was like, this is really cool. Like I want to learn more.
I don't think I wanted to be in tech and kind of had that discovery a bit later on in college. But when I reflect on growing up, I remember like customizing my MySpace page and
Mm-hmm.
like my Neopets account as like moments of being like, oh, like what does this HTML do? Like I can't wait to like paste it in and see what my profile looks like. So I feel like I didn't want to be in tech, but if I think about it, I'm like, yeah, I was always interested in it, but the ways that it manifested was kind of hilarious.
It's a good story, Ornella. I think I mentioned on one of my previous episodes of this just in that that MySpace was actually one of the areas by which I discovered web development as well. I was a tinkerer and I played around with HTML, and I was actually more of like a designer by background in the sense I was using Photoshop. And so I got into web dev because I liked the idea of being able to put my designs onto a web page. But then MySpace made that so much easier, and the rest is history. But it's interesting. You are not the first person who I've talked to who discovered technology in part through MySpace. Also have to add, like one of my magic moments that I haven't discussed with this group of learners and on this show is instant messenger. It's something that I think that we nowadays take for granted. We use it in a work context, or we can chat or text people on our phones, but the idea that I could be having a chat conversation with multiple people at the same time and it feel like a roundtable on my computer was super profound. And it's, feels so simple now, but it was super interesting to me as well.
Yeah, I remember my first AOL username and like logging in and like seeing if your crush was online and like
Your away message.
my away message. Oh my God, like song lyrics, just like so funny. I kind of miss that. I miss I miss it being more like asynchronous. I feel like now everyone is like always online and so you can always reach people, but like truly there was a time that you could be on the internet and times when you couldn't, because if your mom was on the phone, like you'd be on the internet.
Yeah, totally. I get super excited when someone enters the chat, or someone like, yeah, you would wait there. Or we had a little bit of, the family phone was tied up with multiple. I had two younger sisters, and so the phone was tied up pretty often. And so instant messenger, good times, reminisce and such. Good stuff. All right, well, let's talk a little bit more about our own career journeys and kind of some of the things that went into what we were thinking as well. By the way, just a shout out to Stefan too, self-taught represent, some throwbacks there. Thanks for engaging in our chat window too. It's all good. Bootcamp Unite for What Did I Say Again as well. So it sounds like we've got some people that are pretty passionate about this topic and things like that. So awesome. Well, I think one of the things I just want to set the context for our conversation is, as I mentioned, there's really no right answer here. And the purpose of this discussion, obviously, is not to say, hey, you should totally go do this one. But I think it's more about there's different contexts. Somebody's career by which a coding bootcamp or obtaining certifications might make more sense. There's a moment in one's career where you want to go and acquire a set of skills, or maybe you're looking to make a career switch. And so obtaining a CS degree or other technical degree is a super important step in doing that. Obviously, very, very important as well. But before we get to all of that, I want to kind of begin with the more simpler approaches. All three of the things that we're describing here are pretty significant decisions that require time investment. Sometimes it's a money or cost investment as well. But it turns out there are so many different resources out there, including this Microsoft Reactor community. The reason why I think the three of us, but I'll speak for myself here, we have the honor of having this job role as a cloud advocate is because companies like Microsoft and other people in the developer community think it's important for people to be able to learn technical skills. And so I've had the honor of working with students for many years. I do call this my dream job. It's not always perfect, but it's awesome. And I love what I do. And I wake up in the morning thinking about that I get to help teach and help others learn en route to me learning myself. And so communities are important. There's lots of free materials out there on YouTube, coding boot camps, governments and organizations really focus on more inclusivity in tech, which is obviously a really, really significant opportunity that we have as well. But let me turn this to a set of questions and such. So Ornella and Gwyn, when you think about all these free resources or ways to kind of technically upskill, where do you begin?
I'm a big fan of YouTube. It's insane for how many years. There's just years and years of tutorials. And I mean, obviously lately there's like a lot more. But I think back to I was in I think high school when I first dabbled in any kind of like technical thing in terms of like programming or web dev or whatever it might be. This was like 10 years ago, I think. And there was still like tons and tons of content out there. And yeah,
Mhm.
the quality was, it was hit or miss. But it was interesting because I had like the concept of like, essentially building my own curriculum. It's like, oh, this tutorial here, but I still need to fill in the gaps. So I would just kind of like, I became better at like searching for what I needed, which is a skill
Mhm.
set on its own when it comes to, troubleshooting in tech and stuff like that. But yeah, I've always been a big fan of YouTube. And as of lately, Microsoft Learn, not to plug our own thing, but I really do like it. I really think it's a great tool. That's kind of my go-tos at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think, Ornella?
I think I'm a little biased because I used to work on this team, but I love just like the Microsoft Docs.
Mhm.
Um, and specifically like the VS Code website, I think is a really, really good resource for learning how to code. And not just because I made the getting started videos, but um, I think it's just nice to have everything in one place. And that I know that that team is focusing really heavily on understanding how people start engaging with VS Code. So there's a
Mhm.
lot of like beginner specific resources that are just really accessible. And yeah, I think that would be my pick right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll totally yes, and that a lot of the experiences that I've had technically upskilling have been in VS Code with just a basic code editor, and then just trying to kind of download an extension and then kind of tinker through docs and things like that. I'm very much kind of an experiential learner, so I have to kind of kick the tires and learn there. But I mentioned this on my on the show last week when we had Jacqueline Russell on for Make Code is make code is a code blocking tool. It's really useful, I think, for kids and for students to learn how to code. But I'll be the first to admit I use it as an adult. Whenever there's a new library that comes out with games and things like that, I like to learn by understanding the logic and the sequence and how things come together, and the fact that you can toggle to then the code is actually really significant for me, because then that pattern matching, I start to memorize the syntax a little bit more. I start to understand it a little bit more as well. And so I find that simple low or no code or code blocking tools can be very, very useful when you're trying to learn something new as well. Well, what else? So we talked about YouTube, we talked about some code editors and docs and things like that. What do you all think about other resources like MOOCs that are out there, massively online courses? I think I once took Harvard CS50, for example. I don't know if I got all the way through it. I didn't officially get the certification, just to be honest there. But I certainly watched a lot of it, and I thought it was really interesting. But what do you think of MOOCs or other kind of like sequential learning materials like that?
I think that one that you mentioned, and then some of the MIT ones are like just extremely popular, and it's kind of like everyone's go-to when you ask like, oh, what kind of stuff should I watch online or what's available, because it's like
Mhm.
great quality. I definitely watched a few. I definitely did not finish any of them because they're like very long,
Yeah.
um, and sort of like the reason that like school didn't work well for me is because of just that format, very like lectured based kind of thing,
Yeah.
which they're essentially the recorded recordings of these lectures. But what was great about it was being able to stop, pause, re-listen to things, because I have to like listen to things like multiple times in order to like fully understand. But I think that like was really cool. I mean, there's like so many of these now. There's like what's it? There's this platform EDX, I believe. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
And yeah, totally.
Yeah, there's like a bunch of like at this point, like literally every topic is on that, following that kind of like that similar format. I definitely have to be in I think I have to be like really brand new to a topic to be able to fully take advantage of something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think since I've covered, I guess, my fundamentals in my career, I can be a little bit more niche and more specific, and then it typically ends up being like a documentation that helps me out instead of these courses. But when I'm brand new, I really like to consume like those more of like longer, sort of like curriculum style kind of things.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I would say it's just like whatever works for you. Like everyone has like a different learning style. Everyone is at a different point in their learning journey. So like if you think a more structured approach like a MOOC is going to help you at this point, then like try that out. Or if you're more like Justin and need to be like tinkering on a project, like try that out. There's so much available online that's free, so you don't really have to commit to it, but try out a bunch of different things and see what works, and then stick to whatever you think is like you're getting the most value from. So that's kind of my outlook on it. And I think like Gwen, it differs, based on what I'm trying to learn, when I'm trying to learn it. Like it's just always kind of a different journey.
Yeah, I think it's a super good point that you got to do you. And the reason why all these different learning resources exist out there is in part because different people learn at different paces, different rates, different styles. And so, I think to kind of our thesis here that there is no one thing that works perfectly for all people. But fortunately, there are so many resources out there as well. I will come back to the YouTube videos as well. I will also check out YouTube. It's one of the things that's gotten me really interested in doing this series is that we stream on YouTube, and I've learned a lot about YouTube and other rich media. In this case, this is a live stream, long format, but I've also learned about more short format, and it's been a good learning journey for me. I think during this last 2 years, kind of during the pandemic, I've learned just a lot more about online resources in general. But one of the things that I particularly find useful is the sort of shorter format where, let's say you want to learn a tougher topic like how to code in Python, but the videos are broken down into sort of 3 to 5 minute segments. And so what I really like about that is that it's really approachable. So I can say I can commit these 3 to 5 minutes to learning this particular concept, and then I can go have lunch, or I can go for a walk, or I can get back to work or something like that, and I can pick it up, and it doesn't feel like it's this huge commitment. And I think that's what is hardest about a MOOC or a structured form of learning, is that you feel like it's such a big commitment that you have to spend a lot of time on it. And so I do love that. There's some great resources out there. Python for Beginners is a YouTube series that some cloud advocates at Microsoft did a couple of years ago. There's a whole bunch of other ones, web dev for beginners and IoT for beginners and things like that. But if you're out there saying, I'm not sure I want to commit too much time yet, I think those would be some pretty good ones to go check out as well.
I think
Cool.
even like TikTok.
I was about to say there's people teaching
Yeah.
full-on programming languages or like cloud platforms and services on TikTok, like
Yeah,
bite-sized 30-second lessons.
People's attention spans are getting smaller and smaller. And I mean, I'm on a team, a little sub team of VS Code, and we work on the VS Code TikTok, and like there's a ton of content there if you just wanted to learn like tiny little snacks of information. And there's a whole like code talk is like definitely a thing. And so really, if you have like 1 minute, you can learn something. Less than a minute, you can learn something. So there's a lot available on like literally every platform.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to ask, because I'll be the first to admit that the short format, TikTok style, YouTube Shorts, Facebook Reels, and the like, that's new to me. I'm definitely learning about it and such. But in your opinion, Ornella, Gwyn, like how do you do a short format learning like that right? Like what are the traits or what are the characteristics that it needs to have to feel authentic like that?
So they need to be really short. Like ideally less than 30 seconds. Because when you're on a platform like that, the amount of time you have to grab someone's attention is like half a second.
Mm-hmm.
And so the beginning has to be like something, you know, like controversial or like really interesting or something. Like the first initial thing that's on the screen has to be like attention grabbing. It's called in the industry thumb stopping, which is kind of funny. Like you have to like stop scrolling. And yeah, so they have to be really short and they have to be really focused. Like you have to kind of understand that like you're not going to be teaching someone like 12 things in this 30-second time span. Just like drop one little fact and then that's kind of it. Show it on the screen. You know, like people like to see what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think the number one takeaway is that it has to be like super short and really to one point.
Yeah, singular, like debug your Python with print, and that's it.
That's
you know,
it.
you got 12 seconds. You got 6 seconds to share everything that's useful about the print function, right?
Yeah.
I've found a lot of success with at the beginning just being very straightforward, like, hey, I'm going to show you how to use the cat command in 30 seconds. I do a lot of like CLI, Linux commands, bash command stuff on TikTok short form because it's really easy to show and really easy to explain. And it's like straight to the point, like, I'm going to show you how to do this. And that usually works out pretty well for me. Like I see like, you know, good engagement. People really like it. And yeah, straight to the point. There's no like, hey, everyone, this is my life story for like 2 minutes and then 30 seconds of the actual content. It's not like the quicker I can get it done, the better it's going to perform.
Yeah.
Totally. And like the thing you have to keep in mind, I think, when you're working in a platform like that is that it's not really to teach people. Like the number one thing that you're trying to build is awareness of your product. And like that is something that I feel like is really hard because we as cloud advocates are always like, how do we measure the impact of the work that we're doing? Like how successful is this piece of content that we just created? And with things like TikTok, like you just can't. And the thing that you're measuring is like awareness. And you know that it's successful because it has like a ton of views and a ton of likes and a ton of comments, but like you don't actually know people's journey after they leave that little snack of information that you gave them. But now they probably know what VS Code is or what, you know, this CLI commands are, and then maybe they'll go pursue that information further, but maybe they won't.
Yeah, they're like moments of inspiration because you know, Gwyn, you said earlier that docs matter, Microsoft Learn matters. There's these resources, VS Code. You're not going to learn all of that on a TikTok, but you certainly might have an idea or might have a moment of inspiration or saying that's interesting and such. And Ornella, I certainly relate as a cloud advocate about measuring things. I think I've had the opportunity to be a cloud advocate or a dev advocate in some form for 6 years of my career so far. And I don't know if we've ever really figured out how to measure things. We certainly talk about it and we learn, but you know, to kind of put this back on career focus too, I think that's one of the biggest challenges about a career in cloud advocacy and advocacy in general is, you know, is this series, this live stream that we're doing right now, is this, you know, does this make a difference? I think it does. I think in my heart, I know it's more of a career that you lead with your heart and your authenticity and what you want to share. You may or may not be able to measure the success of that. I'd love to say that it's more simple than that. Whereas maybe if you're a program manager or a product engineer, you know if your feature gets adopted or if people use it and things like that. And I got to stop for a quick second. Surly Dev asks, is there a VS Code TikTok? Oh, yes, there is definitely a VS Code TikTok. So definitely check that out as well. I think the people at VS Code have figured out, I think, how to do this pretty right, at least is much better than I could at this stage. So totally check that out. All right, well, let's talk more about our main theme of today, which is to talk about obtaining a CS degree, Coding Bootcamp, and certifications and such. And so I think to set the stage on this conversation, Ornella, you kind of represent of the three of us, one who obtained your CS degree and went that path. Gwyn, you've taken a lot of certifications and have learned, and I love some of the stuff you've done on YouTube about evaluating the pros and cons. That actually was the inspiration, amongst other things, for doing this series. And if I could say I could relate to any of them, mine would be closest to the Coding Bootcamp in the sense that I came from a non-traditional engineering background as well. I went to a liberal arts college and got a degree, but it was not a technical degree. And so a lot of my own upskilling has been through experimentation, through boot camps and other things like that as well. So let's get started on this. Ornella, maybe we'll go to you first. So yeah, share with us a little bit more about your experience in getting your CS degree. What went well? What would you do differently? What would you change? All that stuff.
Sure. So I guess to start off, I didn't think I was going to get a CS degree. So maybe let's start there. I went to a small liberal arts school also in Southern California called Pomona College. And I went there because they had a really cool environmental analysis program. And I dropped the class on my first day, the intro to EA class. And our advisors had us write a list of, all the classes that we wanted to take or that we thought were interesting. And I just picked one off the list that fit in that time slot, and it happened to be Intro to CS. I was very lucky in that I had 3 female professors who taught that class. And so I feel like it was an incredibly inspiring thing to see. And halfway through that semester, I entered a hackathon with some of my friends, and we built like this really dumb little app and ended up winning the hackathon. And then that was really like the thing on my resume that I feel like propelled me into a full career in CS, which is, it's crazy how life works that way. But I got an internship that summer working at a company that was doing like experimental user engagement campaigns, like basically web development. Like you would make little shadow boxes. Like I remember so vividly making a shadow box on like the Chanel website and being like, this is so cool. Like, wow, I can't believe I get to do this. And for me, I really like stumbled into it by accident, and then kept getting pretty cool internships like, Google and Microsoft and whatever. And then kind of came to my career at Microsoft. And I think it was a very interesting experience because studying computer science at a liberal arts school is very different from studying it at a bigger university that's more focused and also probably has more like different concentrations. I think ours was very conceptual, and that wasn't as interesting to me. So I found myself resenting it a bit as I got into the upper division courses and feeling like I needed something more. So I ended up doing a double major in digital media studies because I think like art and technology, or like media and technology, is kind of the intersection where I was interested. And that was really cool because I got to do like a huge large scale installation for my thesis that I like coded. And then it was also like kind of both sides of the major. But I think the big takeaways are that honestly, that I don't think you need a degree. Like I probably could have done the same thing, just like getting a minor or something, and saved myself a lot of the stress of the upper division courses. But I think also if you are considering a degree, maybe checking out a school that has like different concentrations and different paths of like what you're interested in. So like I know some schools have like software engineering as a major, which like from my perspective maybe would have been a little bit more valuable than like, here's like upper division programming languages and you need to learn like combinatorics and logic and all this stuff. And I feel like I don't really use that in my day-to-day, but like software engineering, I definitely would use in my day-to-day. So I think those are kind of my takeaways and the journey of how I got there. But
Yeah, there's some really interesting points I think that you say there, Ornella, to unpack even in your own journey. And obviously your journey is one of many of us, all of our kind of discover ourselves in different ways here. But one of the things that I think I heard you say was the inspiration that your faculty, three professors in this case, kind of propelled you as well. So from a degree, from a CS degree or from a degree at a university perspective, what was the community like? Were there some advantages to being able to be around your professors, your classmates, or things like that when you were studying?
Sure. I mean, I think that is like one of the best things about college in general. And my school is very small. There were 460 kids in my class, and computer science was the biggest major at a whopping 70 people.
Uh-huh.
Our biggest class was 30 people. So it was definitely a very small and very close-knit community. After I took the intro class, I was also like a TA and then a head TA for that class. So I got to also like guide a lot of people through the journey that I had been in. And I think the community was definitely the best part, and like the
Yeah.
professors and everything. Like you just had so much access to them because it was such a small school. So I think there's an added layer to this conversation, which is like kind of like big school versus small school and like the benefits and drawbacks of those, which we don't really need to get into. But I think I had a very, very privileged experience of knowing my professors and all of my people in my major really, really well.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you're so self-aware of what you got, what you took from it, but it also helped to define your career beyond what you didn't like or what you would do differently or experience differently in that too. But it's very, 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 very interesting when you think about inspiration, the networking, the ability to teach. That's one of the things that drew me in pursuing my degree, even though it wasn't CS, is that I did get that opportunity to teach others and lead others. And here I am a few years later being a cloud advocate. That's a job role where it's a teaching role. It's a sharing, it's a learning role. And there's something I think about cloud advocacy that draws people to interdisciplinary different things and like that as well. Very cool. Well, Gwyn, you came amongst many things from the certification tracks and other things. Tell us a little bit more about your experience there.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, I sort of my first taste of I guess anything technical in school was in high school. I did this programming elective. So it was like an introduction. And I think it was like a year long or something like that, like the school calendar year or whatever it might be. And it was pretty cool. And then I think I don't know, that was like junior year or something like that. When it came around time to, my goal had always been to go to college to get a computer science degree. So then it was like pretty easy. Like I knew that was what I wanted to do. First semester I did pretty well. And then come around like second semester, it was like a mixture of like me just not feeling like I was like it was like a good fit for me, and I didn't necessarily think it was like the material itself. It was just like the way I was being taught.
Yeah.
Or the way I was like taking it in. It could have also been like, I was just like 18 years old. When you're really young, you feel like you know better than everyone else and all that kind of stuff, right? I also had been going through like a lot of like personal things there, so like sitting in a classroom and being able to focus was extremely difficult around that time.
Yeah.
So I ended up dropping out, and I was actually living in South America, in Ecuador at this time. And then, I was like, all right, well, what am I going to do with my life? So I just moved back to the States, and then I got a job at a Apple store, like fixing phones. And then it was still like technical because it was still troubleshooting, and it was interesting because we did like a lot of ticketing, so it was like a lot of documentation, a lot of troubleshooting, a lot of just like fixing like kind of like simpler issues with like phones, because a lot of it was already defined. Like you didn't have to come up with new creative solutions or anything like that. But like the concept of like help desk or frontline support like very much was happening there.
Yeah.
But I got really tired of it after like a year and a half, because I don't know if you've ever been to an Apple store on like a Sunday, but people get really, really mean about their devices. And it's understandable. But I got tired of it, and like a year and a half in, like switched to this like help desk job. And at this help desk job, there was an infrastructure team that was working with AWS. Like they were doing some like migrating some of the like on-prem stuff into the cloud at AWS.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about that help desk job was if I had like all my tasks done, they would let me just kind of like shadow other people's work, other teams' work, and these teams, we became friends, and they would like show me like what they're working on. I wasn't allowed to like do anything, of course. But one day, someone on the infrastructure team was like, "Hey, if you're interested in this, you should like look into this thing called like cloud certifications." And the help desk gig, which is, and they had like a program where they would pay your certifications and like any books that you needed for study material up to a certain amount. I think it was like $500 a year or something like that. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll study for it. And then I found like back then there used to be Linux Academy. I don't think they're a thing anymore. I think they were purchased by another company, but I got a subscription to there. I studied for an AWS certification for about 6 months, and I really like, took it in and out. Like I recently found my notes that I took for that certification, and this was like years ago, right? And it was like 60 pages of just like notes about this thing. And I learned it in and out pretty much. Then I passed, and then after a couple of months of like continuing to like after like work, go home, practice things, do tutorials, I felt a little bit more comfortable to like find other jobs that were like cloud adjacent, not necessarily like cloud in the role, but like in the description, I'd have the possibility to like work more in like the cloud. And then I landed this sysadmin job that was using Azure actually. And this was my introduction to Azure. And they didn't really care that I didn't have a background in Azure or certification in Azure. They were just interested in the fact that I had like a certification in AWS and that I had an interest to educate myself and like continue furthering my skills outside of the role, in which the certification sort of proved that to them.
Yeah.
And then at this gig was where I kind of learned Azure like really, really well, because it was like a small team. Like the dedicated cloud team was my boss at that time and myself. So I was just doing like a bunch of things, and because essentially I gained the trust of like my manager, he was just like, well, here are the guidelines, here's what you got to do. If you run into any issues, kind of let me know and then we'll figure it out. But that was a role of like 2 years of just kind of like figuring stuff out really in the cloud. And then that's when I started a YouTube channel, started doing like tutorials on the things I was learning, started to like document. After that, I got an AZ 900. After like 2 years of already working in Azure, I got the Azure Fundamental certification. And I only did that because a lot of people were saying it was easy, and I was like, it can't be that easy. I barely passed it. I barely passed it, and I only did it to like prove it myself. It's like, I think it's very important that we have like these foundational level certs, because it makes it a lot more accessible for people, and like they don't have to like jump into like an associate level or professional level specialty, anything like that. So I took it, and I barely passed, and I was like, this is great. And then with the certifications, with the that helped me get become an Azure MVP, networked. I met a bunch of people like using social media and like LinkedIn, Twitter, and all these kinds of things. Like meet people who were already working at Microsoft, kind of like get my name known, because I knew that I didn't have a degree, I didn't have like fancy experience on my resume. I had to like figure out some other way to like stick out. And yeah, just after like a couple of years of doing that, I like landed a interview at Microsoft. I was rejected twice though. Landed an interview at Microsoft, and that's the role that I am in now since June of last year. So yeah, and I mean I have like a Linux certification that I got last year that in my opinion is the one that I studied the most for and like I learned the most out of. But I'm a big fan of them. But there's a balance to it.
Yeah.
I think like 2 or 3, fantastic, learn them in and out, great. But then I only use them when I feel like I need to like really learn something in and out.
Yeah.
I don't like try to like collect all the badges or anything like that.
Yeah, you touched on many points there that would be great to explore even more, Gwyn. Maybe you can explore those even more on your own channels and things like that too, because I think we've got about 20 minutes here, and I think we could talk for hours on this. But I want to touch on a couple things that I think I heard you say. The first one I think that was interesting was your term cloud adjacent, and how you found a role that kind of suited you naturally. But maybe there's this perception that to get a cloud engineering role or a software developer engineer in cloud was too big of a leap from where you felt like you were then to where you were. And so you pursued what you perceived to be these sort of cloud adjacent roles. And I think there's a lot of a lot of strength and a lot of great advice for people out there is, is that most of us in our careers, I'll speak for myself on it. I didn't necessarily expect to be doing this job role that I'm doing right now back when I was 18, 22, 25 years of age. There were some seeds that I look back and said that was interesting. For me, it was actually like data science and business analytics and what became IoT and the evolution of Python-based data science. But for others, it was a sysadmin, or even just working in an Apple store and dealing with irate customers on Sundays and why their iPhones wouldn't work. All of those sort of precursor skills really do matter. And I think sometimes we under account for how important those are en route to our career as well. Yeah, the other thing I'll just say that I thought was really interesting that you said amongst many is that, 2 or 3 certs. I think there's some good advice there that there probably is a law of diminishing returns by the number of certs
Absolutely.
one and goes out and obtains. And so I think if I could offer any perspective here, it would be that one, even though I work for Microsoft, I do recommend that you go and obtain multiple certifications from multiple clouds or multiple providers. I think that rounds out your skills. I think it's awesome that you went and pursued AWS en route to also obtaining Azure and things like that, Gwyn, as well. But also, pick the ones you want to do most, and you're going to study, and you're going to put 40 pages worth of notes like you did, as well. So
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you could do it any different than you do now, Gwyn, how would you change how your path went or changed, or would you
I mean, I wouldn't have changed anything except I would have told myself, especially back in like my transition from help desk to my sysadmin gig, to like chill out and to not like be all over the place because I remember at that point I was sort of trying to just like throwing everything up against the wall, trying to figure out like what I wanted to learn. And it was like month one, like web dev, then app dev, then this and that, and like trying to do all the kinds of things, do all the tutorials, spend all the time doing all of it. So I definitely would have told myself like, relax, like pace yourself. It's all right. You're going to get there. But in terms of like the progression, the way I did things, the time it took, I wouldn't have really changed anything else outside of that.
Cool. Well, I think there's an old adage that, why do either or when you can do both and? So, Ornella, let me ask you a next series of questions here. So you got your CS degree. Obviously, you're successful in your career. Were there other resources or other things that you kind of explored en route, whether it was a boot camp or certs or something else as well?
That's a good question. I think what happened for me is that I took a kind of unconventional route when I was already in my career. So I was a Microsoft intern, when I was in college, and it was a PM internship. And I remember on the first day of the internship, my manager saying these words to me. He was like, your project is software-defined networking for hyper-converged infrastructure. And I was sitting there like what? Like, what did you just say? I literally have no idea what's going on. And I was so adamant, like when I was going in for my internship, I was like, I want to do something creative. Like I remember telling my recruiter and being like, all I care about is doing something creative. And then I come in on the first day and this is what my manager tells me. And I'm just like, no, like what is happening? That being said, he spent so much time with me, just like whiteboarding, explaining what all of those words meant to me, like really just like going in depth. And then after I understood it, he was like, I know you're interested in more creative things. So why don't you like design the user experience for this product? And it would be really nice to have you do it because you're like not an expert in it. Like, how does someone who's not an expert understand this thing that's really complicated? And I think that really spoke to my like, inclination towards teaching, because I was like, oh, maybe this is kind of a good fit. And then I joined Microsoft full-time as a PM on the HoloLens team. And there I was like, this makes total sense. Like media, CS, like this is totally fine. I was like 21 and managing a team of 30 people, which was really stressful.
Mhm.
And I did not love it.
Mhm.
And I had really, really awesome mentors who were like, maybe you should try a different role. And if you don't work at Microsoft, you might not know this, but like most people switch between teams internally and stay kind of like in the same role. So like if I didn't like the PM role I was in, I would maybe switch to like a different PM role on a different team to like see what the product was and like what's up. I switched to being a content developer, which was like very strange, I think, at the time. And it was amazing. Like I got to teach and I got to make content. And I was like, wow, this is really, really fun. This is what I enjoy. And then actually stumbled upon this role on Twitter. I saw someone tweet about it and I was like, whoa, like
Mhm.
I've been making so much beginner content. I think that's the thing that I'm really interested in. Wouldn't it be cool to work for students? So then I applied for that role and now I'm a cloud advocate. So it's just like for me, really experiencing a wide number of different roles at a company that I knew was like really supportive of kind of that trajectory and like being around really awesome managers and mentors who kind of like guided me through those decisions was how I ended up in this career today. And there was a lot of learnings along the way. I would say like in this role, you're not expected to be an expert I would say actually in all roles. You're not expected to know everything. And like one of the beautiful things about making content for beginners is that you can learn with them.
Mhm.
And it makes you a really like relatable resource for people who have no idea what they're doing because you also have no idea what you're doing. So I think there's, I'm constantly using resources like Microsoft Learn and the docs and everything to learn new technology so then I can teach them to other people.
Yeah.
So, especially in my current role. So, I think
Yeah.
a lot of things there about exploring different roles and then also learning kind of as you go what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's so much truth in what you say there, Ornella. I mean, even this just in show that I do here, this gives me a great excuse, say a month or 2 months in advance when I'm planning out shows or what we're going to talk about. It gives me a great excuse to say, I want to go learn that. I want to go get smart in sustainable software engineering or how to code or have the latest conversation about inclusive design. And so I would say for my own career pattern, the path that has been most successful for me has been when I purposely pick a date in the future and say, I'm going to go speak to a bunch of students about this topic. I'm going to go to one of the student hackathons and go be a mentor. And I'm going to learn about Python Flask. Even though I came from a JavaScript web dev background, I'm going to go learn Python Flask and learn how to do web dev in Python. And I just pick something in the future, and I think I can get there with enough study, but it gives me enough motivation. I think there was a person in the comments earlier that talked about performance anxiety and the fact that I really do think imposter syndrome is real in tech, and I believe one of the best ways to overcome that is just to pick something that you're saying, I want to go do this. I'm going to go be part of that hackathon, and you may not be brilliant. You may not be perfect. That's not the point. The beauty is in the journey, in my opinion, as well.
I
Well,
think
speaking
also,
of, so no, go
sorry,
ahead. Or no, sorry, go ahead.
one thing to add, I feel like I haven't said this yet, but I think if you're new to a technology and you don't know the technology, pick something that you do know and are interested in and find a
Mhm.
way to kind of do some sort of project in that intersection. So like for example, I was trying to create some content about the Power Platform, like beginner content,
Mhm.
and I had never really like built my own Power App start to finish. So I made a Power App that like organized my closet using AI because I'm really into fashion. So just like all about interweaving interests that you have and feel really comfortable exploring with a part of technology that you're trying to learn. And I think
Mhm.
that like, I think similar to like picking a date in the future, like there's a little bit more intrinsic motivation to be like, okay, I can do this because I feel really confident about this one thing. I'm just trying to learn this other thing kind of through that lens. So
Yeah.
choosing like interdisciplinary projects, I think, is like a hack to learning a new skill in tech.
Yeah, very cool. Well, social media, I think, plays a key role in both of your lives and careers. We've talked a little bit about YouTube and such, but how do you think about social media when it comes to upskilling, being in community, and how do you use social media towards that as well?
I mean, I think my relationship with social media changes as well. It's not like this like static thing. It really depends on like sort of like if I'm in sort of like a focus mode or something like that, or I might like be using it less or something like that. But I guess the consistent pattern is I like to follow a lot of like people that I learn from. So whether that be like engineering focused YouTubers or my favorite like book authors or favorite engineers at like different companies who, that's a great part, is like they'll just share maybe something that they're working on or some issue that they had during the day or their thoughts on some sort of new service, or there's quick tidbits on especially like Twitter and LinkedIn and things like that. And I think like that's pretty fantastic. I've also like when I remember doing the 25 days of serverless, which is something that the Microsoft advocates did back in, I think it was like 2019. And they had like the hashtag, and there was a couple of the days that I didn't know how to like find the solution or do the solution. And I would just go on Twitter and I would ask, and people would just kind of like offer solutions. And I would also be able to find people's solutions, but with the hashtag. I think that's great. And, you know, I made friends from that. I mean, that sort of was like the beginning of ending up in this role that I'm at now. But if you use it smart, like there's definitely ways to you know, learn from other people, to meet other people, smart and like and authentic also. I think it's a great tool in moderation. Yes.
I agree with that, in moderation as the key. I think being online most of my day makes me want to be offline the rest of the day. I think I really started using social media when I started doing a more public facing role. So kind of like the opposite of Gwyn a little bit. But it's just a fun way for me to engage with the community and increase awareness of like the content that I'm making. And I love answering people's questions on Twitter. I get a bunch of DMs literally every day because of the VS Code videos, people being like, teach me VS Code. But yeah, it's just like a fun way to engage with the community. But I think it's also important to protect your peace and use it in a benevolent manner.
Yeah, I think for me, I went through a phase, particularly in the pandemic, where I actually turned off social media for a long time and said like, oh, there's negativity, or there's things in social media that I need to have some freedom from what I do at work or what I do in my personal life from it too. But in the other sense, I kind of learned that as I sought out positive channels of people that are really exchanging great ideas and great things like that, I found it kind of alluring to re-engage. And so I've gotten more involved, and particularly in following people. Gwyn, you made this point that one of the best patterns that I actually discovered a Coding Bootcamp through this as well, was that a mentor or somebody on social media that I respected, because they posted about positive, engaging, inspirational things, things that made me happy and feel like I was part of a community that was bigger than myself, especially during the pandemic, where my family was quarantining more, or we were just at home most of the time. We weren't even going to the grocery store at the time, or things like that as well. And so I think if one seeks out the people that you are inspired by or admire or want to be in community with in social media, it can be an incredibly powerful tool. regardless of what platform you use. I think it's really not just about the platform. It's about the people, about following people that say interesting, useful, and thoughtful things. But particularly in the learning community, I would encourage you all out there, go find 2 or 3 people that inspire you, that share things that are interesting and meaningful, and go give it a try.
One thing I'll add there is Twitter especially has been a great place for me to find job postings. I think Ornella mentioned this too. I like every day I'll see people like just posting like, oh, we're hiring for this, DM me. That's the cool thing. People be like, DM me if you have any questions. So I think it's pretty neat for that too.
Totally. I definitely posted my roles when I was hiring on Twitter. I wasn't used to that, but I kind of got used to that, and I got some great leads. Yeah. All right. Well, we are probably about less than 5 minutes left in our stream. I want to give Ornella and Gwyn just an open floor. Any other advice that you would give learners that are either students or looking to change careers or things like that? Any other advice you would have for our learners today?
I think we both touched on this a little bit earlier on, or we all did, but different things work for different people. And I think touching upon the social media thing, it's so easy to see like someone saying like this works for me, and then you might feel bad that it might not work for you. But respect your pace, your time, your way of learning, your way of working. And just because you don't get there the same way that other people did or in the timeline that other people did, it doesn't mean that you can't do it.
Yeah.
And kind of just like trust yourself, and that you'll figure out it's the best route for you, and just also trust that there are many ways to end up at the same spot.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think probably my biggest piece of advice is kind of the last thing I said about choosing like an interdisciplinary approach. And I think honestly that was probably my biggest takeaway from getting my CS degree, because that is what I chose to do in college, and like understanding how to mix your interests with technology, your interests outside of technology, I should say, and letting other parts of your life flow into like what you want to do for work. And I think that just helps you increase your passion for learning about technology, because it can be really stressful and daunting to be like, oh, I'm not very good at this thing. And I should mention, like, I think Gwen touched on it earlier, but like I was really bad at computer science in college. Like I just like I was not doing well. I had to like rely on my mentors and professors all the time. It's okay to ask for help. I think that's another key takeaway. Like ask people in your community, pair up with someone to learn something new. I think hackathons are a great avenue for that. But yeah, just like be kind to yourself, be patient, explore your interests, and you'll get where you want to be.
Yeah. Right, cool. Well, thank you so much, Ornella and Gwyn, for joining us today. Very interesting conversation. I learned quite a bit here from both of you. Even though I know you a bit from working together, it was great to know your stories just a little bit more as well. And I think hopefully our community got very similar as well. So just as a next step here, if you are looking to uplevel your skills further, we talked a little bit about cert tracks, the Microsoft Reactor community. These are obviously places in Microsoft that you can take a look at even more if you're looking to make a career switch or looking to explore things further. We didn't have time today to talk about the Microsoft LEAP program. I thought we might, but we got on such a good conversation. But the LEAP program specifically is a job program for people who come from non-traditional backgrounds. And I think, as you heard, all three of us came in some form from a non-traditional or less traditional background en route to where we are as cloud advocates. Certainly something to take a look at there. And then one of my favorite resources is the job role selector on LinkedIn as well. That specifically focuses on technology jobs. There's lots of great resources there. But if you're looking for some inspiration and you want to start with like, what does it mean to be a cloud advocate? Or what does it mean to be a product manager? It's a great way to begin before you're ready to make that jump to a coding bootcamp, a cert track, or even a CS, a degree as well. So again, thank you very much, everyone. Really appreciated the chat today. Very lively. I tried to cover a couple topics, but there were some great questions in there. Hopefully we in the community could answer. And if you want to check out other episodes of This Just In, I'm at aka.ms/thisjustin. We're almost done with our series. We only have 2 more in this season. What's new in inclusive design and accessibility? And what's new in data science and machine learning as well. So we're going to get back to that. So again, thank you all. Have a great day and really appreciate it. Cheers.